Red Sonja issue number 1 from Dynamite Comics. So, this actually came out on Wednesday, and I actually picked up, I didn't mean to. Like, anyone who watched my last video, I'm getting kind of burnt out on comics just because of how hard it is to find good ones. Like, all the ones I keep finding are just, like, really terrible. And I'm just basically reading the same, like, 5 series over and over again. So I actually didn't go by my local comic book store. What happened was, anyone who doesn't know, I'm a huge like health nut. Like I eat, I don't eat out. I eat like nothing but organic food. I work out like every freaking day. A lot of it has to do because exercising stuff helps with my anxiety. Anyways, it's been raining a lot recently, and which basically makes it hard for me to go for my walks. So instead, I went to the local mall and started doing my walks around there and like inside. And I actually realized that there was actually a comic book store inside my mall. So I decided to browse it, and I found Red Sonja. And yeah, like I said, this came out on Wednesday, and I guess they rebooted Red Sonja again. And I will say this is actually a really good series. This is a really good reboot. The last Red Sonja was, I read like the first 15, 20 issues or so. It wasn't that bad, except it was very, I mean, basically Red Sonja got transported into the future, which is our present time, and then she just kind of had like, wacky adventures, in our present time, and I don't know, it didn't feel like a Red Sonja series, but this does. This is basically like, it feels like a Conan Barbarian series, but with Red Sonja instead of Conan, which makes sense because, Red Sonja is a spin-off of Conan. But yeah, we basically start with these two characters talking, and we get basically like an exposition dump. But it's done in a pretty decent way. He's basically just talking about how there's this new king who is basically taking over, and this guy kind of feels like maybe the king is one of those where he's strict but he is not tyrannical. It turns out that this guy is actually the previous king. Basically he has been conquered, and the king basically is about to kill him, but he's like, you know what, like, you've been a king before. Maybe you have. Maybe you can be like an advisor. So, what would be your first thing to advise me? Like, I'm thinking about conquering these lands over here. What do you think about that? And the king basically says that it would be an easy conquest. The people are backwards. They're so poor they don't have metal pots. They basically cook animals in their own leather. Basically, they cook like their foods inside of the animals themselves. But basically it's a shithole, and there's no point in conquering them. You might as well just let them be, because if you conquer them, you're just going to be in charge of a shithole. But if you somehow were to lose, then that would just be a huge mark against you as a king. And the king decides, you know what, thank you for your console, but I can't use him. Put him in the sack. And his whole thing is like, I'm sorry, my friend, but you think like a king while I'm an emperor. He wants to conquer all the lands, including the shitholes. So then we cut to Red Sonja on her horse. And I don't know if this is continuing off of the last series. In the last series, again, like I said, she was in the present day, but I don't know if she, near the end got transported back to her, timeline or not. But basically, in here, she is kind of not a refugee. She's like a fugitive. She was, I guess, in charge of a kingdom, and the kingdom. Well, she was. I don't know. She was. What does it say? Was she in charge? No, she was trained by this leader, and basically he ended up getting conquered, and she escaped. So she's kind of a fugitive, and she's being tracked down by these mercenaries, and she dispatches of them. But I like how they go about doing this. She's not overpowering anybody. In fact, she even says, basically, the guy who taught her how to fight, like, he taught me that soldiers are at their best, not when they are fighting for something, but when they are fighting for someone. But what are you when you have no one left to fight for? And that's kind of her at the moment. But he says, you don't win battles, he said, by being stronger than your enemy. There's always someone out there who's stronger than you. And you don't win battles by being ruthless. Cruelty only stiffens your opponent's resolve. You win by being where they don't want you to be. And we basically see, like, she attacks, like, she takes out the first guy by being in his blind spot. She steals his horse and tries to make an escape, but they shoot it down. And then as the mercenaries are approaching her, she dispatches of the first guy by basically grabbing sand and throwing it in the guy's eyes. And as, you know, he's kind of blind, she slices off his head. Then she grabs the head, throws it at the other guy, and then immediately after stabs at him. And then she picks up the bow and fires at the other guy. So I kind of like how this was done. Like, not only is the artwork actually pretty damn good, in my opinion, I like it, but I like how she's not overpowering soldiers. Like, I don't know. I've always been one of those where, like, I don't mind seeing, like, you know, medias, like, you know, whether it's a television show, a comic book, a video game, a movie, whatever, about, you know, women, you know, being the protagonists and they're beating up, like, soldiers and stuff like that. That's fine if you do it in a certain way. I don't like seeing them overpowering the guys, because it's like, okay, you have a 90-pound, 100-pound woman, and she's out straightening she's overpowering a 250, 300-pound muscled soldier. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I'm able to expend my, you know, my disbelief, but at some points it's just kind of like, oh, okay. But, like, if she uses speed, if she uses her cunning, her flexibility, if she does this where she basically kind of fights dirty, you know, I mean, this wasn't dirty going to the blind spot, but, like, throwing sand in people's eyes, throwing, you know, heads at them, stabbing them when they're, you know, when they're not, when they're not looking for it, like, finish them off with arrows. Like, this makes sense. This is how, like, you know, I like this kind of fighting style. But these guys basically show up and they want to bring her back to, I guess, her old land. I'll say this. I'm not the biggest, I don't want to say fan. I'm not very knowledgeable of Red Sonja. I just know that she's like a spinoff of Conan. There's a lot of different backstories for her. I know, I think in one of them she was Conan's lover. But yeah, I'm not sure where she's from, but this comic seems to insinuate that the shithole that I mentioned earlier is actually her homeland. And they basically bring her back, and they're kind of telling her about this. They're basically telling her about this king and the stuff he wants to do. And let me see. I want to make sure I get this right. Yeah, basically they ask her to basically help her and help them, and basically come back, you know, with her people, kind of thing. And she finally agrees, and then it ends up to be a stunt that they then end up pulling on her. Basically, they say, "All right, congratulations, you're now the queen of this shithole," and then they all leave. And basically, she's kind of trying to figure out, okay, what the hell just happened? Why did, you know, they brought me here, they made me their queen, and then all of a sudden, as soon as they made me queen, they all just skip town. And that's when, like, her handmaiden shows up and tells her about this king who's trying to take over, and he basically asks, like, he basically sends a message about demanding surrender, and I'm not going to show the rest, but you can kind of guess where it's going, and that's how it ends. Here are the other covers. I saw this one, and this one at my local comic book store, but they didn't have this one. I probably would have gone with that one. Just because this one, like, it's not terrible, but it feels not cartoony, but the tone. I mean, I know she's like slicing, people, and there's blood everywhere, but just the style feels off. Well, it doesn't. It's too colorful, whereas like the tone is very like grimy and dark, and kind of dirty. But yeah, like for a first issue, I think this is really good. And you know what? I'm actually like, this is how you do a reboot. I like how they, like, Red Sonja has gone through a couple of reboots in the past. There was one where they like basically gave her a bunch of Red Sonja has always been kind of like sexualized. There's one where they basically gave her like almost like full body armor, and then they rebooted that one. Like, when that failed, they rebooted that with her basically back in her original armor, but then they sent her to the present, and I guess that one failed too. I don't know why else you would reboot it, but I guess people wanted her back in the Conan times, and they wanted that more sand and sword feel. So they did that with this, and you know what? It's actually good. Like, I like where they're going with this. I like how there's no, like, as far as I'm seeing, there's no ham-fisted social politics message trying to be, shoved in our faces here. It's just basically you get this, you get Sonja, who is kind of rock bottom right now. She's a fugitive. She has nothing to live for at the moment. Her mentor was recently killed. Her kingdom is gone, or at least her homeland was gone. She comes back to where she was born, only to realize it's a shithole. And then basically the people dump their problems on her and then abandon her. And now she's trying to, she has to make things right. Like, this is a character that I can get behind. This is a character that interests me. This isn't a character who's like, doesn't really have any problems or any obstacle that's in her way. They immediately trounce and just steamroll through all their adversaries. So I think this is a very good first issue. This is good enough to actually put on my to put on my pull list. I'm going to be checking out the next few issues and seeing how it turns out. But yeah, Red Sonja, this is a really good reboot. I highly recommend it. Dynamite did a really good job with this, and I'm usually iffy when it comes to Dynamite. Like, they did like really good stuff, and then they just done a lot of shit. I can't really forgive them for destroying Hackslash with Resurrection. I thought that was garbage. Seems like they're kind of trying to fix it with Hackslash versus Chaos. I'll have to see how the third issue turns out and stuff. But yeah, this is a really good issue. I recommend it. Plus up. Oh my god, thumbs up from me. I like the characterization of Red Sonja in this. I like where it's going, and the artwork's not too bad. So yeah, I recommend it. So tell me what you guys think. Anyone been reading this? What do you guys think of it? Anyone following the last series? Is this a continuation, or is this just a straight up reboot? You guys can let me know. But also, if you guys are reading anything that's good, please let me know. I'm trying to find some good comics. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell for notification. Leave a like. Feel free to comment down below. And I hope to see you guys next time. Later.